away they go then for the St Mary's Trophy. Part 2, aggregate results here. And it is Matt Neal who gets to the first corner in the lead, and probing already, flashing his lights behind the Thunderbolt is Mike Jordan, Mr. Motivator. But look, through the middle comes the Mini, and that's Nick Swift in the green Mini that Karen Chantok drove yesterday. Absolutely sensational. And the number 1 Mini is out of behind that is the car of Jason Stanley in the mix as well, and the colours that Steve Neal, Matt's father, ran in the 67 British Championship.
Well, such chassis variety, car variety, and twitching as he went through St Mary's for the first time. Race leader Matt Neal, Henry Mann in the Thunderbolt getting closer and closer, and that amazing Mini with Nick Swift up from 7th in the grid. He's already dropping those behind as he gives chase in 3rd place, but what a start. Did exactly what he needed to do from pole position. Matt Neal building on the work done by his teammate in crime in the British Touring Car Championship, Gordon Shedd.
They're in 5th place as the BMW, got a snatch of that, but as they go through, Matt Neal it is who leads in the 15 Lotus Cortina. Behind him is Henry Mann in the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt, who muscles down the outside but has to brake earlier than the Cortina. 3rd is the red car. It's got a permanent flashing headlights, I think, that of Andy Jordan, very period. And in 4th place is Nick Swift in the Mini. 5th is number 100, which is Richard Shaw. And then it's Alexander Furiani, part Italian, part German, in his lovely Alfa Romeo GT8. So the boot of that car might be slightly propped as it goes through. Bonnet certainly is, but we know that anyway. Round the outside is the BMW. Well, yes, a big mash in the back of the Alfa Romeo, and I think there's a matching ping on the front of the BMW of Richard Shaw. There is, yes. The left front wing of the BMW is savaged, and the back of the Alfa. And the Alfa now comes past the Mini of Nick Swift coming down into Ford Water, but Nick Swift hooks his wheel over the inside. Bruce, over to you.
Yeah, well, everybody's going past the Mini after that amazing start from Nick Swift. Starting to pull clear now is Matt Neal, because the Thunderbolt is being harried very hard. Henry Mann being pushed super hard by fast-starting Mike Jordan. Oh yes, that is quite a dink in the boot of the Alfa Romeo. Wonderful shots over the corn stoops as the cars go through St Mary, drop into the ditch beyond, and look at that car variety. Minis, oh, we love the Minis, the BMW teasers, so exciting. And one of the beauties of historic racing is looking, particularly the rear angle, seeing cars drift round corners. Still works for me.
It's amazing, isn't it? Look at that, the bonnet just hopping up and down on the front of the Swift Mini, getting a bit more air into there, so the little relaxed springs holding it down, and that's the Cortina attacking as well. Down
there. A little bit of a mark on the front of Richard Shaw's BMW, yes. Number 100.
Matches rather nicely, I think, the back of the Alfa Romeo. That was a first lap incident. John Young looking down the inside of Swift. He's got territorial advantage going into the chicane, or has he? No, Swift doesn't bother to brake, just pitches the Mini in across the bonnet of the Lotus Cortina. John Young, winner of Friday's Freddie March Trophy in previous years, but not this week. He's won a race here, though. He won the Ford Water yesterday. And look at that, the little Mini TNJ hopping about, and Jason Stanley not far behind in his 64 Mini, the pale blue one. Looks like the Keep Arden cars of yore. Well,
what we're starting to see, Marcus, is Henry Mann is fighting back. Matt Neal seemed to have it all under control in the leading Cortina, number 15, but Henry Mann in the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt getting closer and closer around this lap, coming down the kink before St Mary's. He's 3-4 car lengths clear. He loses a bit of ground into the corner. The Cortina turns in better, but then putting the power down out of the corner, he closes in again. In fact, Mike Jordan is closing in on both in the number 77 red and silver Cortina that was driven so well by his son Andrew yesterday.
Yeah, he's settling in well, is Mike Jordan. Unfortunately, popping and banging at the back is the Fiat 1500, which is struggling on 3 cylinders. There's our leader then, and Henry Mann attacking earlier on the straight, just rumbles past down the outside. There's absolutely nothing that Matt Neal can do apart from look into the braking area for Woodcote.
Should be enough space. Oh, not quite enough for Matt. He's knocked the back off, though.
Fantastic.
It's not as though somebody races the British Touring Car Championship and has done so since, eons ago, doesn't know how to race close with another car. But look how Mike Jordan is closing in behind in the red and silver Cortina. So it's Ford 1, 2 and 3. It's Fairlane Thunderbolt, Lotus Cortina, and the Richard Shaw having a great run in the 100. A BMW that was driven yesterday by Jackie Oliver.
That's right. Well, Henry Mann presented with a 1.25 second advantage by Tom Christensen, yesterday's winner in this. So provided he keeps the rest of them behind, he's home and dry in the aggregate result. But he's charging away now, and the two Cortinas are getting together. Running down the grass there is Nick Swift. Never back off in a mini front-wheel drive car when you got in the grass. Just keep your foot hard in, and no one does it quite like Nick Swift. Behind Nick Swift, splitting him from the Jason Stanley mini for number 4, Lotus Cortina, and coming back through the twisty bits at St Mary's is the Cortina of three-time PTCC champion Matt Neal.
Yeah, I must say, on the first day, Andrew Jordan was very, very tail-happy in the red and silver Lotus Cortina, but being driven much more neatly by Father Mike now, who's right on the tail of Matt Neal there. Now, don't forget, it's a 25-minute race. We will get them coming upon back markers at some stage, and I think with this group, it's a question of who's the most positive, but of course, Henry Mann has the advantage. He's got all that extra grunt to accelerate away.
But he's not a BGCC driver.
Yeah, that's the arrow he doesn't have in his quiver, it must be said.
Mike Jordan, who's been playing around with diff settings on the Lotus Cortina in preparation for this meeting. Henry Mann comes out, a big surge of power from the big Fairlane Thunderbolt. This car's made in small numbers by Holman and Moody in the States in the early part of the 60s.
Well, Richard Shaw hanging on gamely behind to at least put a BMW in the mix behind those three Fords leading the race. The first car they're going to lap is Graham Robson in the number 55 Fiat Abarth 1500S, which he shared. Well, his partner in crime is Sam Tordoff, another British touring car racer, who drove it yesterday.
Jordan just the quickest of those three last lap round, but there's nothing to choose between their lap times, and kind of 1/10 of a second or so. And again, Neal takes a lot of speed, little tail wag down towards St Mary's, ahead of the 55 Fiat of Graham Robson.
But what we're seeing time and again is Matt Neal is getting the tail wagging his car a little too much through St Mary's, and Mike Jordan closes in yet more in the 77 Cortina, the red and silver one. Now, who's going to get past the Fiat the most cleanly? Of course, plenty of power for the Fairlane Thunderbolt to do so. In fact, even Stevens, no one gained an advantage there, but Matt Neal, tall fellow, tucking down to his own, he's trying to get in the slipstream, even though he's in an enclosed cockpit as he accelerates through the Navant kink and up to your end of the lap, Marcus.
Just brilliant stuff. Here they come then, flat out down the Lavant Straight, such as it is. It's to be fairly twisted and torturous.
Massive twitchy moment for 46, the little green Mini out at the back of the circuit at St Mary's. He got it under control. That's Desmond Smale, having fun. And now nose to tail, Fairlane Thunderbolt, Lotus Cortina.
It's getting closer and closer.
Before.
It's 1.2 between the three of them over the line last time. It's closer this time, surely. 1.2.
Went out by 5/1000ths of a second, so I think we can call that all square on that lap. Don't forget there was lapping that had to be done. There will be more lapping ahead of them. I'm looking to see who will be next. The next car they will catch, long way ahead of them. In fact, it's the silver and red Stewart, silver and blue, red blue Mercedes, which is just going through St Mary's now. They're a long way behind, but I'd say this lap, Henry Mann has really put quite a gap.
Here's the start. Here's the replay on the big screens, ladies and gentlemen, the start. A little bit of creepage at the front, but Henry Mann didn't get away well at all, but he didn't need to particularly. It's a case of not going up in smoke with the Fairlane Thunderbolt. The BMW laid rubber, good and proper on the outside. That was Richard Shaw. They're about 5 wide at that point, with Nick Swift trying to tuck up the inside, then changing his tack, going across behind the red Cortina of Mike Jordan, and up inside the Alpha. That's where the BMW of Richard Shaw, slowly away from the outside of the front row. Once the wheels started to spin, dinked the back of the Alfa Romeo of Alexander Furiani.
Swift getting closer and closer to Furiani now. That's the battle over 5th place. The Alfa Romeo ahead of the Mini, and yes, that'll need more than a little polish to improve its look.
And here are the leaders back with us. We're watching Nick Swift coming to terms with Alexander Furiani, but first three go through. A new fastest lap to Henry Mann, a 1:32.049, which is a fine effort.
The others, the chasing Cortina's also setting their fastest lap.
Henry Mann more than a second quicker than he was in qualifying. 1:30.502 was the time which Tom Christensen posted in winning yesterday.
Well, as we've seen year in, year out in the St Mary's Trophy race, such different cars take part in it. And at certain points, when you have a dice around the lap, the duel, one car will be quicker through the tight corners than the other on the open sections of the track. And that's what we're seeing as Nick Swift bounce off the curbs at the Kings before St Mary's. When it's in the corners, that's where the Mini has the advantage. And the Alfa Romeo has to hang on ahead of it, but really being pushed hard. That battle for second place, though, 15 ahead of 7. That's Matt Neal ahead of Mike Jordan, who's been so positive since the start of the race. Now they're just dropping away that little bit the power of Henry Mann's Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt.
Yeah, they've just gone past Dragon's Den investor Theo Perfitis with his Ford Anglia. Started racing this year, and he's locked in combat with Mark Bevington's Isuzu Bellet, of a type that Bruce McLaren raced here back in the 1960s. Richard Shaw's next to catch the angle box. Leaders reunited at the chicane.
Peters coming through, he'll be in 27th position, just dropping back behind Bevington on that lap. But since getting smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror of our lead trio, Henry Mann leading the way in the Fairlane Thunderbolt, Matt Neal still in second place.
Jordan the quickest of the three last time round.
Indeed, the gaps are coming down. 1.3 seconds now covers the top 3 cars. So the Cortina's fighting back onto the tail of the Fairlane Thunderbolt. Of course, the Fairlane driver Henry Mann can pick and choose his lines, but Matt Neal has to keep an eye not just on his mirrors but down the inside, because Mike Jordan's getting close. Close is one thing, getting past though is quite another. Lights ablaze, they drift through the right-hand kink before St Mary's. The Lotus Cortinas together as they have been all race, and again Jordan a little bit tidier through St Mary's.
Jordan's
always the tail is coming out for Neal.
Jordan's car looks very, very sure-footed through there, Bruce. Very tidy.
It certainly does, and I think he's got more of a handle than Andrew has. Andrew is his son, British Touring Car Championship champion recently, found it wildly tail-happy until Father Mike said, well, that's how these cars are supposed to be.
Absolutely, and he tucks back into the slipstream of Matt Neal, with whom, of course, he's diced in BTCC in years past. There's James Martin in his little Cooper S. He's down in 15th place. He was going to drive with Sir Chris Hoy, but Sir Chris taken unwell this week, unable to do it. James Martin having a good little battle there with number 20, which is Chris Lillingston-Price in his Minbin.
Yeah, well, the whole way down the fields there are battles within the battle, and the one that's been raging ever since the start of the race has been the trio of Fords at the front. Henry Mann dominating in terms of the number of laps, leading this race. He got to the front of the Fairlane Thunderbolt after that poor start and just has that extra bit of power. So the Lotus Cortinas of Matt Neal and Mike Jordan don't have an answer for him, but they'll stay as close as they can and hope they can nip through when it comes up to lapping. Richard Shaw holding 4th place in the BMW. Alex Furiani just about dropping Nick Swift now.
About dropping, it looks like Nick Swift is having another nibble at the boot lid that was attacked and savaged by Richard Shaw at the first corner on the first lap of the race. Cortinas absolutely locked together.
Coming up to lap Graham Robson's Fiat for the second time. They managed to do it without being delayed, and there is the Fairlane Thunderbolt in the front of your shot. He had a slight interrupted line through St Mary's, but does seem to have the grunt to pull away from these British duos. Of course, the American-built Fairlane Thunderbolt, a very different piece of machinery.
Yep, absolutely superb car control from all of these 3 drivers. The gap between the Cortinas yesterday, interestingly, they finished 2nd and 4th, something like 2 seconds. So 2 seconds is the advantage that Matt Neal has, presented by Gordon Shedden yesterday over the Jordan Cortina. So this probably be the 1, 2, 3 if it stays like this in the overall result. Nice corrective lock from Mike Jordan through the chicane. Matt Neal beginning to edge away from him. Wonder whether the car is actually coming to him now, the handling of the car. He's not throwing it around too extravagantly, so the tyres will probably be in half reasonable shape. All running on Dunlop treaded tyres.
Well, as we saw in the race just before this one, the Barry Sheen Memorial race, we had little bits of at the edge of the blocks, the polystyrene blocks of the chicane, a little bit of a banner's been peeled off, and I saw Mike Jordan flip that last time through. Whether it was ripped clear by Matt Neal just ahead of him, doesn't matter. And as I said, Nick Swift nowhere near Alex Furiani, well, within 2 feet, the little Mini behind the Alfa Romeo, and they're both very close indeed to Richard Shaw's BMW.
Exactly, they're closing in on another. Closing on the BMW. That's not Richard Shaw's.
Oh no, sorry, Richard's just come through the kink before St Mary's, and that was one of the back marking ones, pale blue. So that was. That's Adrian van Hooijdonk, who's down towards the tail of the field, by mistake. But what isn't to be mistaken is just how close the Mini is to the Alfa Romeo. It could not get any closer without touching, but just enough speed for Alex Furiani to stay ahead into Lavant, and for Nick Swift not to think about trying the inside line. Well, that for the first part of the corner, when he tried it in the second part, but then as they go through the second part, you see the Alfa Romeo, more grunt, away it goes. But then, of course,
Nick Swift doesn't trouble the brake pedal too often, does he?
No, he doesn't, and he certainly really won't be at the end of the lap. He might breathe down into the footwell and just call that braking, but he'll be pitching that 76 Mini very sideways into Woodcote and seeing if he can claw back the advantage. You see how the Alfa Romeo can open it out in a straight line. Must be thinking, or early in the race, Alex Furiani, I'm getting away, only to find the little green Mini right under his tail again. And indeed, getting under the tail, we have Mike Jordan in the red and silver, number 77 Lotus Cortina, getting closer and closer again to Matt Neal, who dropped him a lap ago.
Yeah, the Ford Fairlane of Henry Mann, number 12, now stretching away towards what will become a double victory out of the box. This car running under the Commonwealth Racing banner.
Oh dear, the Peter Alexander, Tony Jardine Ford Anglia. This was the substitute car, clearly not running as it should, so into the pits.
This is an absorbing battle with Nick Swift head down in the Swift Tune Engineering Mini.
Then you look down mid-order, suddenly a lot of traffic, and that's Marino Franchitti in the big the Galaxy being pushed very hard by Sean Lynn, who had quite a moment where he clattered the tyre walling down at the opening corner yesterday.
I believe that Franchitti drove it yesterday. I think it's Ian Dalglish in it today. It's Canadian.
Yes, because they seem to have flipped the order around.
Switched the order, yeah. Franchitti drove it yesterday, a white, red and green helmet in it. Yeah. It's now...
Franchitti carries the Salt tyre on his helmet, so...
Yeah. Yes, the Italian and Scottish ancestry coming through on Franchitti's helmet. There's little Isuzu again.
Sean Lynn going past in the white 14 with the red-yellow stripe up the bonnet. And behind Richard Solomons in the BMW.
Yeah, it's the car that Andy Prio, triple World Touring Car Championship winner, drove yesterday. Richard Solomons is car number 8. That's the Livingston Prize James Martin battle. I hope Chris Livingston Price is a decent cook, because James Martin's making a pretty good job of being a racing driver today. Very well matched.
Yeah, it's been raging, the order's been changing.
Battle, there's a board going out to Rory Henderson. He's in that red and gold Lotus Cortina in the Alan Mann Racing colours, the iconic red and gold. Mr. John Whitmore and Frank Gardner, among others, running under those colours in the 1960s.
And Kerry Michael running behind him in 10th place. The car driven yesterday by Mark Blundell. It's only when you look down the list of who drove the cars yesterday you realise what a stellar cast we have for the St Mary's Trophy race. One of the most...
Look at Nick Swift go, Bruce. That's, I think, down towards Lavant corners, and he's up the inside, and he's managed to box the Alfa behind one of the Jaguars. Clever piece of play by Nick Swift. He has a quick look in his mirrors. Furiani goes to the other side, tries to go around the outside of him on the King. He's got more grunt, and he's returned the favour.
Yeah, and Simon Drabble can only look on and admire as the Alfa Romeo and the Mini go past him. Or normally out in a Reliance Sabre 6.
Simon Drabble, one man and his Jag, as opposed to Phil Drabble, one man and his dog.
But it's never say die for Nick Swift. It never has been, and it never will be.
It was a novelty. I saw him touch the brake pedal. The lights came on.
There's a mistake. That's just getting ready for Christmas, I believe. Really trying to grab the slipstream, but lap after lap, the little Mini just doesn't have the straight line speed to live with the Alfa Romeo. But if there's half a chance, Nick Swift will grab it, particularly if it comes in a corner. Bonnet just jumping up and down, held in place by Straps. Oh, very sideways through the second part of Madwick there for Nick Swift in the Mini.
And what don't you do when the Mini goes sideways? You don't lift. Absolutely superb. He's flashing the lights now. He wants the BMW that's down there to get out of the way. And it does, obligingly.
I think that's the Peter James car.
It is, yeah. So, his books, 14 million copies of one of them sold. Absolutely staggering. Derek Gross Mysteries.
Yet again, Nick Swift is harrying Alex Furiani, the battered Alfa Romeo, damage done by Richard Shaw at the first corner.
Number 10 off. one of the BMWs.
That's Bartley, who was running down in 20th place. So
we're going to see what happened, I think. Oh, very, very close to the leader. Now, what was that about? I'd like to see it from another angle.
I can only presume he got surprised by the leader and maybe realised he'd run too deep into the corner.
Battle for second. 4 3/4 minutes to go in this motor race. They've certainly lost hope of getting back on terms with the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt of Henry Mann for Alan Mann Racing.
Yes, and for there's Mike Jordan in 77. He keeps catching up with Matt Neal and then just can't get close enough to make a move. But up ahead of them, they're just coming through Fordwater now, and now through the kink before St Mary's. Henry Mann has got this under control, and luckily for him, very little traffic ahead of him. He should be able to pick the cars off one by one as he goes through. Matt Neal has got the number 5 Mini as his next car to get past, which is Jörg Weidinger. Very sideways through St Mary's he goes, and Mike Jordan just not living with him at the moment, but it could come back with less than 4 minutes remaining in this race. Traffic could and may play a part. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope it's on straight racing speed. When I say straight racing, I don't mean what Nick Swift is doing. That's sideways racing. The 76 Mini bounced off the curb on the inside. Now he's unsettled Alex Furiani in the Alfa Romeo, but he's got to go the long way round, carrying a bit more momentum. But then, of course, he doesn't bother braking when he gets down to that. Up the inside he'll go. Should work for him.
Beautifully engineered, that pass, and he waves to Furiani and says, "Go back past me, you got the grunt, chap." And that's exactly what happens. Of course, they saw the BMW out there as well. I'm assuming that the yellows are in at this point, but very sporting from Nick Swift. Coming upon the Theo Paphitis Anglia again. What a passenger lap round Goodwood in that Nick Swift Mini would feel like.
Well, he wouldn't bother looking out the windscreen. That would be looking forward, would it?
A bit like wing walking, I'd have thought. Utterly terrifying. And you can see here again how well engineered this pass was by Nick Swift, running in 6th place in the 76 Mini Cooper S. He turns across, he hops through the... He's going to hop through St Mary's.
We're into the final 3 minutes of this race. I think Furiani and Swift, their battle for 5th place will rage right the way to the finish there. 4 seconds down on Richard Shaw's Alfa Romeo, but the battered Alfa Romeo Richard Shaw's BMW, has the Alfa Romeo got enough left in it? I think it probably has, but you know, with Nick Swift, he will never, ever admit defeat until the checkered flag has fallen, so he will be closing in again. At the moment, when he gets close, I think he's just trying to get, they drive past the 1-2-4 Nigel Webb Jaguar, which went wide to let them through and then got on the grass at St Mary's.
Knowing Nick Swift, he'll be trying various things down here to throw Furiani off the scent.
Exactly.
And then he'll pull something very special into the chicane on the last lap, or maybe at Woodcote Corner down by the Super Shell building, that iconic backdrop.
Yes, he's offered about 5 different cornering options over the past handful of laps.
None of which he's going to go for on the last lap.
Exactly. And so goes Henry Mann. We haven't really mentioned him for a while. 7 seconds clear of the Lotus Cortinas. They may close in behind, but don't forget, this is an aggregate result, and that car was first yesterday by 1.5 seconds ahead of the 15 Cortina, which is second on the track. 77 was 4th yesterday in the hands of Andrew Jordan. And I think on aggregate will move ahead to the number 33 Alfa Romeo, which is some distance behind, and the 55 Fiat. It stopped yesterday, it's stopping today.
It's been more or less stopped for most of the race, running on 3 cylinders. Here comes the Mini attacking the Alfa again. One more lap after this.
Now you see Nick Swift, he's running with the boot closed on his Mini, but the number 17 Mini with James Martin, it's open. I haven't seen the picnic hamper, but that's something that isn't according to plan for the 17
Cortina
Mini.
just come past us out of gear, and that was the car of John Young, number 4. That was
well placed,
struggling.
Yeah, 8th place yesterday with Steve Soper on board. Now the biggest gap between the Alfa Romeo of Nick Furiani and Nick Swift's Mini is now on what is probably, is this the final lap? No, it's the penultimate lap, and he takes the move into St Mary's. Well, that was did I just say that's the biggest gap we've seen? I think I did. And then immediately he swept past. So you said he was saving the moves, pulled it off beautifully. Now, what can Furiani do in the Alfa Romeo as he attacks back in the first part of Lavant? But don't forget, he has to dab the brakes slightly here. Nick Swift just plants the throttle, but then planting the throttle on the Alfa Romeo is more effective. You can see it closing. They're coming up to the kink. Will he be able to sweep past and take the lead before They get, yes,
Yep.
he does, by the kink, he does it by the kink. Now, what's going to happen down at Woodcote? 8 seconds until the checkered flag comes out.
Yep. Mann's already on his final lap. 0.5 between his pursuers.
So now there's the official sign. On to the last lap we go.
Surely they're touching up there.
I think he was inspired by the push cars in the Gasser display.
Yeah. Don't break, Alex. Mind you, the bootlid's damaged already. It doesn't really matter. Down the inside, Nick Swift.
And as they go through
He first squeezed over the grass, but he was expecting that.
The first three are all through St Mary's, whereas the Mini and Alfa Romeo have yet to come
Cortina's
through
closer again.
They
down
are indeed.
At Lavant Corner.
So Mike Jordan giving chase in the red and silver Cortina, but Matt Neal, who started on pole position in the white, the classic olive green liveried Lotus Cortina number 15, is holding him off on this, the final lap. I don't think Mike Jordan's got a bullet in the gun here.
No, the Fiat's gone out again on 2.5 cylinders this time. Here comes the man who is about to nail a double victory here for the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. Here's Nick Swift attacking Alex Furiani anew through the chicane. Then for the final time comes Henry Mann in the Holman and Moody Alan Mann Racing Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt, and a double victory for that car out of the box this weekend, fresh from restoration. It was a club racing car in the States for quite a long time, and through on the inside of one of the Minis, but not close enough to be able to make the difference. Nick Swift looks like he's going to be thwarted in his attempts to wrest that fifth place from Alexander Furiani. But as you say, he's not going to give up, and he's right on the back bumper now to go over the line, more or less pushing him through the finish. But he has to cede, and in fourth place was number 100, Richard Shaw, after all that. Fifth, Alex Furiani, and sixth, Nick Swift.